Terry, you have spent over a decade in the Christian counseling world, and you sat in on thousands of conversations and hearing the stories of many. 9 in 10 Christians are missing this one thing. And what is it?
I would say the one thing is discipleship.
Yeah. So I was looking up online what discipleship is. And discipleship is defined as the lifelong process of following, learning from, and modeling one's life after Jesus, fundamentally involving both a personal walk with him and helping others do the same. It's a relational life-on-life journey, and it's not just about information transfer, but it's aimed at transformation, obedience to Jesus' teachings, and reproducing this faith in others. So discipleship is a term whose definition is up for debate. What part of discipleship are you specifically most passionate about?
Well, I guess, first of all, I'd like to kind of stop for a second before I talk about that, because I think we're missing something. Discipleship is more general than just, we're talking about discipleship for Christians. Mm-hmm. But we can be disciples of anything. We can be so a discipler is just somebody who's learning. And you've got a teacher, you've got somebody who's teaching you something, and somebody you're learning. So you can be a disciple of Muhammad. You can be a disciple of all these other. There's a lot of different things. Think about the fact that what are you spending most of your time learning about? You could be a disciple of something you don't necessarily want to be. When you're talking about disciples of Christ, when we're talking about Christian disciples, I think the thing that's most important is helping people get into the Bible on their own and helping them start to understand how to read it and apply it to their life.
Yeah. It sounds like you're most passionate about really not allowing one person to be dependent on you, but always pointing them back to Jesus.
Absolutely. I don't want people to be a disciple of me. Mm-hmm. I want to point them to Jesus because I want them to become a disciple of Jesus.
Because he's the founder and the perfecter of faith.
And I'm not the one who died for them.
Yeah. So you're really passionate about helping people keep their eyes focused on Jesus. What specific discipleship model do you use that you find most effective?
I think one-on-one discipleship, there's been some research in the past. Some other churches have done research where they've looked to see what's most effective in growing Christians and in growing disciples. And, there's each one of the different programs has effectiveness, but I think one-on-one discipleship is really the one that shows the most individual growth. And looking back at my own history, that's exactly what happened. I had somebody disciple me for about 3 years. And that kind of relationship, I felt like grew my faith so much stronger, so my understanding, my desire for staying in the Word and doing my own research. That experience was so important to me that it's something that I really want to try to encourage people to get involved in.
You've said before that many people wouldn't be in your practice if they had even 1 or 2 healthy and depth-filled relationships. From your experience as a Christian counselor, what is one thing if people started doing today would change their relationships throughout their life?
One thing would be, because we need, I really do want people to be in one-on-one relationships, and I think they can be healthy, but they can be unhealthy at the same time. And so I think the one thing would be to examine the relationships that you're in now and ask yourself, are these healthy relationships? Can I be transparent with this person? Can I be, do I feel safe sharing some of my deepest thoughts that I may not be able to share with other people? Is this somebody who I can also be a safe person for them? Is this a relationship or a friendship that I can allow them to be transparent? And even if we're talking about something that feels uncomfortable, we can navigate it together. Then I would say, yes, those are friendships that I think would probably keep some people out of counseling offices.
Tell me one of your biggest joys while participating in a one-on-one.
I think my biggest joy in helping with one-on-one relationships and the ones that I have been part of, watching them find out that they are capable of so much more than they thought they were. I love being an encourager, where you're really encouraging people to do the things that they don't even see that they have the ability to do. Mm-hmm. That to me is exciting.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I feel like that's just really our goal here, is to help women understand that there is more for you out there, that you're called to something higher and you can't accomplish that. So you spent over a decade in the field of relationships, and you've recognized that there's this huge problem in the American church today, and women and men, but specifically we're talking to women, have felt incredibly lonely. What is the number one cause of a female friendship breakup?
Selfishness.
Ooh, say more.
We have a selfishness epidemic.
I believe it.
And I think it's bleeding into everything, into our social media. It's bleeding into our politics. It's bleeding into, it's like I want what I want and I want it now kind of thing. Instead of looking at people and saying, hey, what's the best thing for this city, town, church, group, whatever, what's the best thing for this group may or may not be the best thing for me.
There's this quote that I love, and I think you know that I love it. So C.S. Lewis defines humility not as thinking less of yourself, but of thinking of yourself less.
Yes.
And I started realizing that saying that I don't have something when I actually do have it is not right. Because if I have a gift that God has given me and I choose not to use it to put up a face of humility, that's not being humble. It's more important to just stop thinking of yourself.
Well, and the Bible says we're supposed to examine ourselves. And we're supposed to consider ourselves not better or worse than the other person. We're supposed to think about their needs over our needs, but that doesn't mean that we're putting ourselves below them in any way. It also says that when we examine ourselves, we're supposed to have an honest appraisal of our strengths and our weaknesses. Not constantly putting ourselves down. When we're constantly putting ourselves down, that's not humility. That's thinking of ourselves too much. There's a difference.
It feels so backwards, but when you actually wrap your mind around it, it makes so much sense.
Right.
And it's of course Satan would trick you into think that you're humble when you're not.
Right.
So we've talked a little bit about female friendship breakups, and let's go more into discipleship. Approximately 37% of Christians cite not feeling qualified or trained as the main barrier to mentoring others. Many fear they lack sufficient knowledge or might misguide someone. How would you encourage the woman watching this with this exact fear?
There's some people out there who are going to say that who probably are right. They haven't done enough of their own Bible reading. They haven't done enough of their own Bible study. Some of those people, some of them are going to have to really do that. And I think my suggestion to I guess I would, if I was talking to an individual, I would ask them how much I would ask them about how much or how often they're in their Bible. If it's not very much, I would say, listen, I know I get a sense that you really want to be a discipler, and that's great, and God may have that for you, but He wants you in His Word first. Mm-hmm. If they've already been in the Word, if they know the Bible backwards and forwards, and it's more of a false humility, it's feeling like they're going to be asked questions that they don't know an answer for. That's where I would just say, have courage, step out and try it. You may be surprised that it's not as bad as you think. And the great thing about our having the Bible is and having a basic understanding and knowledge of what's inside there is when somebody asks you a question you don't have an answer for, you say, hey, let's look it up together.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest barriers to discipling is time and busyness. What may happen if someone continues to not seek out and support other people?
Well, I think the time and busyness works for both sides. The person who's the discipler or could be a discipler, and then the person who really wants or should be discipled. We have to ask ourselves this question, what else am I doing with my time? And it's not, in a lot of cases, it's not busyness, it's priorities. Mm-hmm. And I think the question I would ask too is, how much time do you spend just scrolling? Is there an hour you could carve out of scrolling, which is really not getting you discipled or anything else? Is there an hour you could scroll out of something that you're doing, an hour a week where you could sit down with another person and either disciple or be discipled? Is there an hour a week that you could just carve out of, watching movies and TV? I think it's a priority kind of a thing. And for me, I'm thinking, okay, someday I'm going to be standing before God. We're all going to be standing before God, and He's going to ask us for an account of our life. What are we doing with what he's given us? He's given us these, every hour is given by him. Every day is given by him. What are we doing with that? Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have rest breaks and things like that. Jesus would go off by himself and pray, and he'd go off by himself to have some time alone. I think we have to realize that, God is gracious and he's going to understand the needs that we have. So it's not like we have to fill every single minute with Bible reading and stuff like that. But I do think if we're saying, I don't have time to be discipled, or I don't have time to disciple somebody, then I think that's when I'd ask the question, look at your priorities, and is there any room for movement?
So another barrier is that many Jesus followers lack prior discipleship. What advice would you give to those who are in that position?
I get back into the Gospels. Again, if you don't have a model, that's great, that's fine. But you can go in and use Jesus's model.
What other encouraging words do you have for a woman who wants to disciple?
Do it. Just do it.
Just get
I know
into
that was
it.
stolen. Yeah. No, I think reach out. There's ways to contact us. We'll give you some suggestions.
Yeah.
Let us know what if you have barriers other than what we've talked about, just reach out to us and let us know. Maybe we can get back with you one-on-one. We can.
Yeah, maybe we can talk with you gals.
Yeah.
And just see where you guys are at.
Or let us know what things you're thinking in this realm of discipleship kind of things. If you have a concern, or if you have a thought or a question, let us know. And if several people have the same question, we'll make sure to make it part of our podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please reach out because we definitely want to hear from you. So we'll see you gals next time. Bye.